Mic check, 1, 2. Mic and music check, 1, 2, 3. Fantastic. Be right back. All right, everyone. Today's stream is going to be fun. It's going to be crazy. And since there's going to be potentially a lot of people here today, we're going to need to be organized. Because today's stream, we're going to cover a lot of content, and there's going to be a lot of questions, okay? I've broken today's stream up into several segments or showcases. At the end of each showcase, we will take a short break and answer questions, which my mods will be taking from chat and adding to a spreadsheet that I can look at afterwards. Now, to answer a question in the stream, or to ask a question in the stream, it must first be prefaced with the phrase question. So, to send a question in any stream, here, I'm just typing an example now. Question. Okay, sending the example. So you would send your questions like this. I'm making sure all the chats are working on every stream too before we get going. Refreshing TikTok and Steam right now. They're both up. So I've got Steam chat and I've got TikTok chat live now, so that's good. We've got Facebook, we've got YouTube, we've got Twitter, we've got and Twitch. We've got every single platform now. So let's jump over to the main screen where y'all can see me. Welcome. Welcome to the reveal of Fun with Objects. We've got a lot of fun stuff to cover today. So start putting your questions in chat. The moderators will take your question and put it in a document, which I will reference and answer the questions after each segment, okay? The VODs will be available tonight. I'll answer that one right away. So we don't need that. There will be a VOD on Twitch, and I think YouTube keeps them too. So you have 2 locations. Okay, so let's, we've got a lot to cover today. And, you know, just roughly 2.5 hours to cover it all. So I'm going to do introductions. We'll cover the rules briefly as people have been filing in while I've been talking, and then we'll get right into it. So first and foremost, my name is Mac. I am the community manager for Dungeon Alchemist. It's a pleasure to have you all here. Today's stream is a very special stream. It's a reveal of Fun with Objects Part 1 in the closest state it can be to release. Now, I do want to preface this with a warning. Because it's still a early state where they're patching out bugs and fixing things behind the scenes as we get closer to launch, it's very possible this build may crash or have weirdness, wonkiness, where it may not run correctly or run poorly. So at times, if it crashes or is having, you know, hiccups, that's why. So keep that in mind as we go through today. So yeah, the stream always has weirdness. It's mostly because of me, right? So welcome back, one and all. If it's your first time here, welcome to the stream. These streams are AMA format, which means ask me anything. But today we're mainly showcasing the update. So I'd really want to focus on questions related to the update. We will be showcasing directly inside the update. That's where I'm at right now. I'm in a live build, a dev test build, which is only about 3 days behind the devs' bug fixes. I've been told there's a new build being pushed out today as well, which, if we're lucky, it might finish midstream and we'll be able to load into it, so it'll even be less buggy. So that being said, welcome one and all. If you have any questions on any platform, please make sure you type those questions in and preface them with the phrase question followed by the question. So if you, that way it pops, I see it in chat. It's very easy for my mods to see it. They'll add it to a document. And after we cover all the information in the module or the showcase that we're discussing, then I will jump over to questions and answer them. Okay? So we've covered the introduction. We've covered stream rules. So let's go into the first showcase. Okay? One thing I do want to point out that I'm sure a lot of you are used to is you've probably seen over the years how Dungeon Alchemist doesn't block light from exterior settings, right? Well, Shoji, you're welcome to hang out and check out all the new stuff. Would love to hear what you think and appreciate the kind words as well. So, I'm sure many of you are used to seeing the shadows of objects inside, the doors from the light, the walls, everything from the light outside crossing over, right? It's John Doom, or is it John Dune? Now, gotta ask. Anyway, moving on. I know a lot of you will find this quite intriguing. See these hard shadows from the exterior light from the doors? You can now block them. So now that multi-level is being introduced, we're adding a toggle for you to finally block exterior light from interior spaces. The only places it will leak in is like open doors and windows and whatnot. So that is a big, 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 big quality of life improvement. I don't know about you, but I've heard people ask for this hundreds of thousands of times over the 3 years I've worked here. Many different people want this feature because it's immersion breaking when the light from the exterior of a building, the light from the sun is creeping over the top wall and making shadows. So that's the old way, before, after. Desu, right? That is probably one of the oldest and most like prominent complaints in our community is that particular thing. And I've been so jaded to it over the years now of like dealing with the shadows. I kind of ignore the shadows now, but now I'm happy this is happening. This is very like much more realistic, right? Watch when the door opens, shadows leak in. Love it. Look at the windows. You could see the shadow from the windows there. It's subtle, but it's there. Close the door. Dynamic lighting. Amazing. Open the door. So, initial thoughts on that. I hope you are excited to finally be able to not be, constrained by the exterior lighting in a place. The next thing I'd like to showcase when it comes to lighting is a very cool new feature being added. I'm sure you've noticed this little tab here in the light menu, right? Abstract lights. Abstract lights are two new lights that can be added to your environment. One is a spotlight. Right? And you can change the colors of the lights, the intensity. So notice the light back here is changing when I change the filters. Abstract lights are essentially invisible lights. You can put them all over your map to add mood lighting or to point out certain objects or areas. And then when you export or are in first person or a cinematic camera, those lighthouses, these light housings are invisible. They're gone from the export. It's okay, I'm watching it. Don't worry about it, Atlam. I've got an eye on that one. If you can just keep feeding questions from the other platforms, you and Seisu, that would be fantastic. So this is a spot lamp, right? Notice how I click that, they all go invisible. You can hide them several places in the menu. There's actually abstract lights all over this map, adding lighting into the building to give it a more warm and inviting feel, instead of it being like almost pitch black from only a handful of candles being there. We know that our lighting sources are often kind of limited to like a ring around them, and this allows you to add light to the map to feel more warm and vibrant. Are you guys and gals adding questions still to the document? Okay, weird. I'm only seeing like 7 of them so far. I'm gonna refresh. Okay. So Bruce, we'll get to your question at the end of the module after we finish demonstrating all the stuff in this lighting module. We'll be answering questions at the end of each showcase. So we're going to showcase a few things, answer questions, showcase a few things, answer questions. So if you want your question answered, please stick around until we address it, okay? Next, so these lights, one is more like a generic kind of lantern, and the other is more like a spotlight. You can change the color of the lamp. You can turn it off and on, right? You can adjust the brightness, and then you can hide them from view while you're building so they're not a distraction. But the light they cast remains, making them a very useful tool in adding, you know, immersive lighting or mood lighting to your maps. Hey, Half Ogre, how you doing? So that is the end of the lighting module. Actually, there's one more thing that's happening with lighting that I might as well just bring up. Shadows and shading have been cleaned up quite a bit. They used to be a lot harder shadows cast from stuff, and they're a little bit softer. So like a few things like lighting wise and detail wise have been given more realistic tendencies. So it'll feel more real in the environment. Do abstract lights work with collisions off? They're treated just like objects, so if they can be raised up and down. They do not bump each other though, because they're just invisible. You could have like 10 of them right inside of each other, it won't matter. I notice I have collisions on. Because they're invisible upon export, all that matters from them is the light. Anyway, moving on from that, let's go to the question sheet really quick. By the way, let me show you something cool about this map that's been hiding from you this whole time. Okay, let's answer some questions, shall we? Paratatsa on Twitch asks, has the rework been efficient in gaining time for further updates and perspective? Can you clarify what you mean by that? I do know that the devs have told me that this update has essentially, now that this portion of Fun with Objects is being released, they have kind of dealt with the biggest and most gruesome hurdles to kind of make Dungeon Alchemist development more smooth going forward. Basically, the hardest and most difficult updates and features have now all been dealt with. Going forward, they're expecting updates to be much faster. They're hoping 6 months or less is the turn time, between like 4 and 6 months on all remaining updates. Okay. Can you change the weird coloring on the ones that are dark? Like, why are they highlighted like that? Seisu, can you fix that? Okay, I've answered that one. Kane, minimum specs for making a large 10-floor map. That is a very good question. I have not been told the minimum specs for this update. Unfortunately, I do not know. Let's defer to the normal minimum specs for right now on our Steam page. That being said, I have heard that a lot of optimization has been happening in the background to speed up booting, speed up just generic use. It's hard for me to judge that though, because I'm in kind of a buggy build that has issues. So I can't really tell if it's better or not yet. We'll have to wait till closer to launch. Hey Kaiser, how you doing? Chuck the Mead Man on Twitch. Question, will the VOD for this be available tonight? I'm unable to watch at work. I did answer this earlier, but I'll answer again. Yes, the VOD for this stream will be available tonight on Twitch, or it'll be right after this stream, and I believe YouTube. So you can watch it on both. Okay? Look at the top down here. Love this map. Okay, let's get back inside. So notice this little widget here, by the way. You can click on it to go up and down, or you can use the plus and minus keys to shift between floors. Anyway, so next question. Edward Montero on YouTube asks, is there planning to some solution to select a small object behind a larger one without conflicting colliders? That's a good question. I don't really have an answer for it. I have, heard this request. We've shared it with the devs. They know it's an issue. I think the issue is trying to come up with a novel way of dealing with it. Now, that being said, I unfortunately can't answer that question to probably the desired effect or answer you want. My hope is essentially they develop something like an object lock. I've been asked for this hundreds of times by our community members, and I've also begged the devs for it. And the hope is that you can lock an object, and once it's locked, it's no longer like something that you can grab at unless you hold like a very specific key. Then it's like something you could grab at, or then it's like, you could click on its UI. Otherwise, then anything, around it should be easier to click. Though I would say be careful when, dealing with objects next to each other, especially if they're from the workshop. Big objects next to small objects, you have no idea what the colliders are on those objects, or if they were made at all on that object. The collider, think of it like the invisible box, a bounding box around an object. Every object in Dungeon Alchemist has a collider that tells Dungeon Alchemist where it can be moved to, the size it is, how it interacts with other objects. The problem is many of the objects uploaded to the workshop have just very primitive colliders. They tend to overlap each other or have huge invisible boxes around them that you can't see. And so order of operations is very important. Often if you're putting a big object with a big collider near it, and put a small object near it, you can't grab it again until you move the big object. So make sure that the place you put it is the place you want it to be. So just kind of make sure either you put the small object first where it's exactly supposed to be and then move the big object in last, or make sure when you move the small object into place that it's exactly where you want it to be. Next question. Sorry, Montero. I wish I could answer that better, by the way. Mondu on Twitch, will building floors be able to be marked to be ignored during export, so we can only show some building floors while the others... We can only show some building floors. So when you export, the export menu has a few options that have been added. Notice it's showing all the levels that are going to be exported in this map in a single grid. So it's showing the roof, showing the top floor, the second floor, the bottom floor, and the cellar, all in a single view, right? You can click export only ground floor, export all layers and roofs, export all layers. So essentially, all layers and roofs is great if you have buildings at different heights with different roofing. Maybe one building's taller than the other, one's shorter than the other. Anyway, this is the options now currently. I'm not aware of you being able to select any individual level. I did request that, but unfortunately, I don't think it was taken seriously. Or that they just didn't feel like it could be implemented at this time, or it needed to be implemented later. Remember, Fun with Objects is being broken into 2 parts. Fun with Objects Part 1 is what we're showcasing today. There's many features that will be revealed and added in Fun with Objects Part 2. So later on. So right now, today you're getting showed what will be in the update on the 10th. Okay. And remember, if you have questions, please preface them with the word question. Otherwise, it's going to be ignored. Today's stream, there's so much going on. We need everyone to be following the rules and coordinating so we can answer everyone's questions as best as possible. Hey, where was the break in these questions at? Where was like the last question? Oh, I see it. 12. Okay, got it. Moving on. Question. I play in Foundry. This is from Iridescent Crescent on Twitch. Will the door open, close, lights show up differently as the door changes? You mean different doors have different lighting? Yes, I'm assuming so. Each door, you know, some have a window on them, some are different shapes. Yes, they'll all be different depending on the shape of the door. Next. John Yoon asks on Twitch, if you build a building, is there a way to add a basement to that active map after the fact? Yes, but only if you build a building after the update is made, after Fun with Objects is launched. Any buildings you build prior to Fun with Objects launching will not be able to have basements or upper floors added to them. They'll be considered a legacy map, which means that they'll be backwards compatible. You can open them, you can edit them, but you can't add floors to them in the new update if it was built prior to Fun with Objects launching. So any map you make after Fun with Objects, you'll be able to add basements and multiple floors. No, I only seen one Iridescent Crescent. Go answer John Doom's question. Callie Syke on YouTube asks, in this update or the next update, we'll be able to tilt objects. Most likely, Fun with Objects 2 will have the ability to rotate an object on any axes. Moving on. Jdex or Jdex on Steam. You mentioned 4 to 6 months. What I meant by that, Jdex, is every update after this will be 4 to 6 months turn time. Not all updates will be 4 to 6 months combined, but it's like 4 to 6 months for, you know, Water Worlds, 4 to 6 months for High Seas. Going forward after this, it should be more fast in our development turn time because all the most difficult aspects of our development have been tackled. That being said, once we reach the end of our update cycle, those are promised updates from our Kickstarter, i.e. stretch goals from our Kickstarter. That means we've delivered on all our promises from our Kickstarter, and we will leave early access, and then we will both begin to offer optional expansions. The expansions would jump into other aesthetics like sci-fi, cyberpunk, etc., modern, apocalyptic, and think of that, you know, add-on, the expansion would be probably $20 to $30, just a guesstimate there, but it would include hundreds of thousands of objects, you know, dozens, if not, you know, up to maybe 50 new rooms, hundreds of new doors, windows, and walls and floors. And then all of those would be plugged into the Dungeon Alchemist ecosystem, allowing you to build inside of Dungeon Alchemist using all those new objects or all the existing objects and tools. Okay, let's get out of the export screen. The export screen is really nice looking, though. I like it. Okay, it was... So that was the last question, right? We're getting into the next module. There are other questions coming in. They'll be answered after the next module. Or after the next showcase, okay? So, one moment. Lighting showcase is all done. We've answered questions. So, the next showcase is the quality of life showcase, okay? We're going to talk about a few quality of life features that have been added that I think are very cool and time savers and very interesting. Some of you may find them useful, some of you may not. So the first, me too, I'm very stoked for the 10th. And the rotation on any axes is going to be great too. So the first big thing is recent maps. So recent maps will allow you to have a list of all the most recent maps you've opened, similar to like Word or Photoshop, pretty much any program you use that you open lots of files in. So now you can save time and see your last, 10 or so open maps and open them. So that should help speed up, trying to find a map if you are opening several different maps, jumping between them. I think that's such a simple quality of life feature, but also a very powerful one. And that's not much I can show about that other than, just opening a recent map. This is one I'm working on for the trailer, but it also will double as my party's bastion when we're done with it. So this is a 3-story. Here, let's go into... Or 2-story. No, there's a basement, 3-story. We'll take a look at this more in the trailer or in the stream later. But very fun, very simple to open a recent map. Yay! Weird. Not showing the recent map I just had open. The gallery in. Anyway. Might be a temporary bug while they're working on the update before launch. Okay. So, next part of the update that I find very intriguing is batch exports. Batch exports is an improvement on the traditional export. Okay. Batch exports allows you to export the map multiple times in multiple different formats. So some of you may be wondering, how is that beneficial? Well, maybe you export your map with a morning and a night, or maybe you want to add all times a day. Morning, noon, evening, night. Maybe you want it snow as well. So you could have a variation of those. Or maybe you want one that's morning snow, noon snow, evening snow, night snow. Maybe you want a Foundry export that's just an image, or you want a Foundry export that's a still image and animated for every map. Or maybe you want the grid and gridless. You can begin catering export formats to your desire of how many exports you want for each map, right? So let's say the average DM probably exports each map 2 to 4 times. Different times a day, different export formats for, maybe still and animated, maybe gridded and gridless. This will save time in that aspect, but it's a big quality of life improvement for those who do maps, who make lots of maps for maybe a Patreon or commission, because they often export the maps in multiple formats. So this was added to not only help supplement multi-level export, the batch exporter actually is kind of in the background of all exports, supplementing multi-levels, because you need to export them in a batch for each level, right? Each level is exported individually with its own image, with its own JSON if it's Foundry, or XML if it's Fantasy Grounds, or script if it's Roll20. So each of those levels, each floor comes with an image or a video or both if you want it to. It's very cool. So you could set your format name. So in this case, I'm doing Foundry. I'd type Foundry. I'd like to put like a hyphen in between each setting. Image, right? I like to name it what I know it's going to be, so when I'm looking at it later, it's easy for me to recognize it. No grid, right? Together. And then we'll do this as winter or snow, right? Winter. So I just added the snow toggle, and actually we'll say winter, and I set morning time of day, right? Morning. So basically, I mean, you don't have to name it like this. This is just kind of an example, but I gave it all the kind of conditions for what the map is, right? You could even go through and all of these conditions, you could add it to it. But remember, that's going to add it to the name when you export. And then you just simply add export format. Now it's saved on the side, right? And if you want, you can check all of them you have created and then export them sequentially. So let's say you have 10 versions of the map you want to export. You could set it and forget it, tell it to batch export, walk away and come back. It'll all be done. This is a big time saver for those who make maps for commission or, you know, sell them. Now, that being said, it also is a big time saver for pretty much any GM. Most GMs export at least 2 or 3 versions of their maps. So let's say you just use Foundry. You could do an image, an animated version. So you could have both of those, and then you could do all times of day and then a snow version for all times of day. So that way, if your players circle back to that map later in the winter, you have the winter version of it. Or if they're there at night, you have the night version of it. Very, very helpful in that regard. Okay? I love how you could see all the levels for this map, by the way. Roof, 3rd floor, 2nd floor, 1st floor, basement. Very cool. Batch export is going to be a big, big deal. Okay, so we discussed batch export. Next up on the agenda, this is a heavily requested feature since we launched. I'm sure many of you have used the grid in Dungeon Alchemist, right? I use the grid when I'm building, and it allows me to kind of get an idea of spacing and size, right? Especially if you're following a blueprint. It's a good idea to use the grid while you're building. Typically don't export with the grid present because I use Foundry in one game and Roll20 in another. They have way better grid tools than our internal grid tools. But some of you export for print or TV tabletop, projector tabletop, so you play in person, right? And you want the grid to be, instead of under objects like you see now, where it's kind of the grid is visible in some places but not in others, making it very difficult to discern how much movement an area is. You just kind of make guesses. Well, in our next update, the grid tool is getting a facelift. You can now render the grid on top of everything. So if you play in person or if you print your maps, etc., being able to render the grid on top of everything is a very useful tool to be able to handle movement. Bruce, it's separate files. I'll just answer that right now. I did mention that a bit ago when we were talking about it, but each level is its own separate JPEG or video, depending on how you export it. Okay, so grid on top of everything. It's very nice to be able to have the grid visible in every inch of the map. It's going to definitely help to give the maps a more traditional tabletop feel. Zach, how many export versions do you do for a map exactly? It's like over 90, right? So, like, there's some creators in our community who make maps, you know, as commission work or a Patreon, and they sell them or, you know, dozens of variations. So printed, TV tabletop, gridded, gridless, you know, morning, afternoon, evening, night, fantasy grounds, Roll20, you know, universal, foundry. And when you start adding in all those different settings to them, it exponentially grows. Hey, Tara, how are you? Joji, I'm just going to show you something, okay? The grid is moved up when you move up in a level, so it automatically moves up to the level you're on. Check that out. So that's taken care of too. You can also jump between levels using the plus and minus key as a time saver. But notice the grid is now floating over the roof. So it essentially becomes, it moves the grid down to be better for that level. By the way, I used Alt-G to hide the grid or bring it on. That's a hotkey. I like that. It's under the View tab, but I use it all the time. Okay. Tara, please preface any questions related to this stream or the update with the word question, because we have lots of viewers today and lots of questions flying in. So in order for your question to be added to the list of questions we answer after each demonstration of varied features in a showcase, then we'll answer that question. If not, then it'll be missed, okay? Okay, so we did finish the quality of life showcase. We're going to be answering the questions now. There are other quality of life improvements, but they're bundled into other showcases later, so we'll talk about those. Okay. Thank you, Seisu, but please kind of get everyone in line, please, because it's starting to turn into the Wild West in the various chats. Okay. Quality of life showcase is done. We are going to answer questions for a few minutes. Mateus on YouTube. Will the update be released on all platforms? Yes, simultaneously all platforms. Same day, same time, same damn channel. And it will be automatically updated via Steam when it's available. So just keep, you know, loading up your Steam fresh, and if the update's available, it should trigger it. Handle on Twitch asks, when we export the upper floor of the building, does it export with a transparent background? So currently there is no transparent exports or anything like that added for the upper levels. So if you're trying to do a foreground layer, what I would recommend, and they tried to get a transparent export in this first part of Fun with Objects, but they couldn't get it to work right. So they pushed it to Fun with Objects Part 2, which will likely be the second part it'll be launched in, as long as they can figure out how to make it work correctly. So essentially what a lot of people want is when they export the roof, they want it to be transparent around it, so you can set it as a foreground layer. I'm assuming that's what you're going for, right? Mateus, if you're still here, I hope you are. Either way, what I would recommend if you want to set up a foreground layer for your maps for the roofing, right? Simply put, once the map is done, right, and you've exported it and done everything you need to do, go to File, go Save As, okay? Save as the map and set it up as a split of this map. So make a new version that will be your foreground layer, right? I'm going to save that. Now I've got this new map, and what I could do at this point is just simply change the biome. This will nuke everything outside of the map to a degree. It looks like it's all ground out here, actually, so no, it won't. That's one way. So if everything outside your building is technically terrain, not a building, the way this was done, this is alleys. So this is all room still, technically, even though it's outdoors. So we can't do this method. Method 2, well, let me explain method 1. You would change the biome to green screen, right? And then just export again. It will export the roof layer with green all around it, and then you could put it in Photoshop and cut out that green, or GIMP, or any number of photo editing tools that remove a color in 2 clicks, okay? Save it as a PNG, done. Then that's your foreground layer. Alternatively, if you don't have the option where it's all building outside like this is, you can use an object, disable collisions in the object menu, open up the large customizable pane, which is this green panel. You're going to want to get it just under the roof, just the littlest bit, right? And then stretch it across the whole map. I know this is a bit of a band-aid solution for now, but it works. At this point, you then export the map for this layer of the roofing and do it again on any other roofing on the map. So that lower instance, and that'd probably be ideal for the whole map. And then you delete the green. Let's see here. To just the lighting as well. Let's see if we can make that. Raise it up like that so there's really no shadow. And then, yeah, go ahead and you could even delete this tree in this version, that one too. Unless you want those to be in the foreground layer, but you get the idea. Essentially, you would export it again with this visible, which gives you the roofing layer, and then you edit out this green in a photo editor, and good to go for a foreground layer. That will be kind of the workaround until we add a transparent export, at least an option to do it on, you know, wherever you want, or at least the roof layer. Moving on from that. Get back into this building, answer more questions, shall we? Pedro on YouTube, is multiplayer planned to be first person together in Fog of Wars? So, Dungeon Alchemist, I hate to break this to you, it is a map making tool. It is not a virtual tabletop, okay? It's designed to build maps and export them to your play style of choice, whether it's print, TV tabletop, projector tabletop, virtual tabletop, at which point you then facilitate play in one of those, you know, a virtual tabletop, whatever facility or way you choose to facilitate it. So Dungeon Alchemist as it stands is a map making and immersion utility. I know you can add tokens, so it kind of feels like, hey, it's meant for play, but those tokens are to add detail. They're meant to give you also the option to jump in and look around in first person. So when you add a token to a map, it allows you to look at the map from your player's eyes. By the way, there's the ceiling. Looks really good, I think. When you see the view from your player's eyes, you can record this or you can stream it to them, you know, over Discord or Zoom or Teams or whatever. Or you can take pictures and give it to them as handouts. When they enter this tavern for the first time, you'd be like, you could say, you know, when you enter this tavern for the first time, this is the view you see as you look around. Something like that. Oh, yeah, it's beautiful, Sack. Really well. Really, really beautiful. So, essentially, these views, the first person, the token, the cinematic camera, they're designed to allow you to take videos and screenshots to give as handouts or even stream it to your players. That being said, we do plan to add a sort of VTT Lite at some point, but that would be after we leave early access, after we've delivered on all our promised stretch goals and have left early access. Then we will jump into something akin to, you know, making Dungeon Alchemist playable. And it would likely be an accompanying app that uses Dungeon Alchemist maps, but to the biggest benefit possible. Look at this. Max, my own wine in there now. There is no vaulted ceilings to a degree. I mean, if you look at this, this is technically the base ceiling, and then it's vaulted above this floor, but it won't have that arc vault yet. I don't know if they'll be doing that in Fun with Objects 2 or not. They'll all be flat internal ceilings for at least the interim. But you can make, you know, vaulted up that way, like where it's like a higher ceiling for each level. You can cut out sections of floor as you add new ones. So you can essentially make a room like, you know, like a big cathedral with a 30-foot ceiling and big pillars stretching up to the ceiling, stuff like that. Anyway, let's go back downstairs and we'll talk about the next feature I want to discuss. No! I accidentally went out of first person. Why'd I do that? That was dumb of me. Okay. The next update feature I'd like to discuss, and we'll get into this in actually a minute, but is the modular objects feature. We'll jump into that into the next module, but I'll leave this up while we answer questions. So, Fog of Wars. Actually, you know what? Let me get out of this and we'll answer. JadeX says, concerning colliders, it sounds like the bounding reticle that shows when you select an object is not the collider. That's a good question. Actually, I would love it if it showed the actual collider. The bounding is more like the object UI. It has nothing to do with the collider itself. So the colliders are currently invisible, but you do have an idea of roughly where they are because you stack objects on them all the time. Notice like a table. You could see there's a collider on the table, clearly allowing you to stack something on it. But unfortunately, for the most part, they are invisible. Objects that you upload to the workshop yourself, you can actually see the collider and make it yourself. It puts just a basic box around most objects, but you can go through and fine tune the collider to a degree. We offer several variations. So it is up to the user when they upload an asset to make sure the collider is useful. And many people kind of either delete them or ignore them entirely. So we don't have much control over that. That being said, that is a good suggestion. I will bring that up with the devs. I think it'd be great if you could see the collider of an object when you click it. That way you know how big it is roughly and how much space it'll take up. That would be a good way to kind of determine whether or not you should put objects closer to it. Moving on. Ricky from Twitch asks, can you manipulate an item before placement? What do you mean manipulate an item before placement? You can do that right now. You can, in a lot of ways, actually. What kind of manipulation do you want to do before placement, Ricky? Can you specify there? Because that's really vague. Because currently, yeah, you can manipulate an object before placement in a lot of ways. Any object you place, I mean, obviously, I guess you want to resize it before you place it. Well, one thing you'll be able to do is scale an object up to either anywhere between 50 and 200% before you place it. So that's one thing you can do before placement. But that's about it. The colliders and that. Yes, you can rotate an object before placing it. You've been able to do this since launch. If you hold Shift or Control, it'll snap. I hold Shift to rotate my mouse wheel because that's actually a setting in here. Under Controls, it says rotate objects with mouse wheel. So you can just rotate with the scroll wheel or rotate by holding Shift. I have the Shift lock because I like to be able to control when I do that. But yeah, you can definitely do this. That's something that you've been able to do for some time. But this is a new option that I was going to talk about in the next module, but we skipped ahead with a question that had nothing to do with what we were discussing. So moving on, next question. Edward Montero on YouTube asks, can we have an example of a map with 10 levels? I don't really have a map with 10 levels right now. I really have no desire or design to build one that high right now, especially while I'm shooting trailers in a very buggy dev build. That's a suicide mission for me. If I built a 10-story map, it likely would crash and have tons of problems for me. So once it launches, I mean, you have more than power to you to do that. I guess I could try and build one here in this stream, but ultimately I will tell you, the more levels you add and the more objects you add, definitely have a beefy computer and be able to, compensate for the seriousness of detail you're adding to a map. But this map here, Eduardo, does have at least 5 levels on it. Okay, so you have a ceiling, okay? You have a 3rd floor. You have a 2nd floor. You have the 1st floor and a cellar. And it's entirely navigable in first person. There's stairs leading to every level. Archage, are you really still stacking objects to scale them far beyond their lock? I'm a little concerned by that question, actually, because actually you've been able to unlock scaling since this collision toggle was added. If you disable collisions, you can scale an object far beyond or below its object lock. This is pretty much works for like 99% of objects. The only exclusion would be objects that are like wall mounted or objects that are pits. So Archmage, I'm sorry that you didn't know this, but when you disable collisions, you can merge objects closer together. You can scale them far beyond their normal scaling, and you can raise them up and down. I hope all you know this, actually. That's been a feature that's been available for like 2 years. The scaling, the speed scaling, is universal scaling for the menu for practical scale. Okay, so 50% to 200% is basically anywhere from halfling to medium to giant size, right? So it's a practical speed scale. If you want to scale anything far beyond that for personal use, you can do it already. Yeah, people use this toggle to scale objects down to do like forced perspective for like regional or city maps. But yeah, that feature has been available for some time now. I'm glad you learned, though. And knowledge is power. You know what I mean? So now you can definitely make more crazy maps. Now that said, Twitchy Sauce. Hey, where is the break in these questions after the module? Which question number is the break? Zach, Seisu, sorry. Or Atlam, anyone know? Twitchy Sauce, with this release, can you DM me the question number as the break till we jump into the next module? Okay. With this release, is there any guidance the dev team has for Steam Workshop content creators to make objects optimized and versatile and forward compatible? Twitchy, the best thing you can do is make your objects as, small in megabytes as possible by decimating them and optimizing them, and then making sure your colliders are as optimized as possible. We've given a lot of versatility in the collider tools that will allow pretty much any variation of an object to be made. Like, creators have been able to make objects that are walk through or under, you can stack things on top and put things under them. I've seen fully navigable stairs that have been uploaded to the workshop. It does just take a bit of time to get it just right. So objects will be forward compatible pretty much always. That being said, though, it is definitely the onus is on the end user, the uploader, to make sure that the colliders, the name, the size of the object is reasonable, the description so it can be found, etc. All those things. Uh-oh, did the stream just crash? I just lost myself on TikTok. I just lost myself on Steam. Great. Are we still on any platforms at all right now? Wow. Hearing me right now? Okay, it looks like we're back, at least on Twitch. Let me refresh. Okay, we're back on Steam. I don't know if TikTok came back. Okay. Okay, we're good. Oh no, Swamp, I'm sorry. Okay, next question. Inani asks, will you be able to start building at any level after the update, or does the building need to be connected to the floor? So you will need to be connected to a foundation to start building. You can't do a floating building as far as I'm aware yet. If you want a floating building, use objects. Use objects from the object menu. That's probably the best way to do it. And as far as I know, if you delete a lower level, then the whole building is deleted. Like if you delete the foundation level, i.e. the main level, the first level, then the whole thing is deleted, from my understanding. It should be. Okay, Pedro. Is there any plan to export the maps in 3D to the tabletop simulator? No, there are no plans for that. In fact, we would have to gut DA from the ground up to offer 3D export of any kind. We had never intended for it. We always intended for traditional top-down exports with a 3D perspective. That's what makes our maps unique, is they look and have that 3D feel while being a traditional top-down export. I understand that Tabletop Simulator offers kind of a augmented reality 3D, virtual reality type gameplay. The game Dungeon Alchemist would have to be essentially redesigned and redeveloped to cater to 3D exports. And we'd have to redesign it for every single 3D virtual tabletop out there, because with the exception of Tabletop Simulator, they're all mostly an enclosed ecosystem or use proprietary, enclosed assets. So things like Tailspire, you can't import to that, right? 3D Canvas, you have to buy a module and pay monthly to do it. So, and it's a module, a third-party module on a virtual tabletop. So until it's like a stock feature and has a more open ecosystem and is more viable for many basic computer users, we just don't see it as something that we want to put time and effort into for now. In the future, who knows? That could change. Okay, moving on. I know I asked Saturday, but I'll ask here for anyone who wasn't on Saturday. When doing batch exports, can the different exports go to different folders? No, it'll all be in one folder. Unfortunately, you'll have to sort them after we just saved you tons of time batch exporting them. But they will be sorted by name, so it should be relatively easy to do so. Sorry about that, Rev. Hey, can someone DM me where the break in the questions was after the last module so I know where to stop? Because I'm just going to keep going and going because I don't know where it is. Sorry, one of the mods, please tell me. Can you change the height of a floor? You've been able to change the height of a floor. Oh, you mean each level? Meaning, will it have more? Atlam, so the questions that came in, where did they come in before I stopped and started answering them? Because if I keep answering questions as they come in now, I'll never be able to showcase more features. So before I stopped from my last showcase and started answering questions, which was the lighting showcase, right? Or the quality of life showcase. So I showed grid on everything and then I started answering questions. You guys need to put a break when I stop and start answering questions. Otherwise I won't know where I could go. Anyway, moving on. So Swedish Cook, you see here how there is a break and you can go up to higher floors. On each level, you can delete the floors and just have a big vaulted room. That's how you would make a bigger floor. But unfortunately, each floor has a set height until you delete the room above. It is possible to a degree, but it's like you can't just drag and set it. Oh, I want it at 11 feet. You basically can go, oh, I want it at this floor, and then I want it up to the next floor, and then I want it up to the next. So it's going to be like 10-foot increments or whatever it is. Does that make sense? So if you go into the floor tool, you can actually remove floors from that level, right? Which then makes the lower level higher, because then it goes up to the next floor. It's now a 20-foot ceiling instead of a 10-foot, right? Or I'm just saying 10 feet. I don't know exactly how high they are. I'm just throwing out a number, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So essentially, if you, before you added all this stuff, you could just delete that floor and then raise up to the next floor, and then it makes a 20-footed vaulted room. Or whatever the distance is. Unfortunately, there's no like drag. I want this floor to be 15 feet. I want the next one to be 10. I want the next one. You can't do that, but you can clear out the floor of the room you just added and then make it a taller vaulted room. So we'll add that. Are the bastion, are the chimneys in my bastion auto-generated? One of them is an object, and the other one is the modular object tool. So we'll cover the object one really quickly. So there's several chimney objects added in the update. So this one is an object, and I just put smoke in it using the geysers. There's some geysers hiding in there. I wish smoke came out of these by default. That'd be cool, but I just got clever. So one of my players in our group wanted his room, his personal room in the bastion, to have a fireplace in it. So I found this corner one, and then I put this chimney on top of it as an object till it went through the roof. I stacked two of them on top of each other. It's actually two chimneys. That was that one. Okay, the other one, I actually used the modular object tool, and I just ran a pipe from the top of this stove top all the way to the top using modular piping, which I'll show in a bit. I'll demonstrate that shortly to the whole, audience. Our walls handled on Foundry export for multiple level buildings. Each level is its own image or video. So all each level is treated as its own export, which means exactly the same as it is now. So floors, walls, windows, doors on each level will be handled by their own JSON. So you'll have to create scenes for each new level. Did it just crash again? What is going on today? I feel like I'm getting DDoS'd. Is YouTube working right now? Steam just came back up. I'm going to restart the stream, most likely. TikTok's still down. Yeah, I'm going to restart the stream, so we're back. Oops, why am I on the damn challenge screen? Okay, TikTok is working. So the only one that isn't working anymore is Twitch, right? No, it's back. We're all back. Every stream is back now, right? Is it? Please tell me, confirm. Are you seeing all of them, mods? I see Twitch. I see TikTok. Steam is not back. We'll give Steam a minute. Okay. Yeah, I think Steam crashed. Oh well. Okay. It stinks, but we're live on all other platforms still, so I'm gonna go with it. Okay. Had all the platforms crashed? I know, I'm just double checking every platform, Mitch. Unfortunately, we got to check 6 different platforms before we confirm we can go back up. So, it looks like Steam died, but all the others are back. And I'm going to take that as a sacrifice I'm willing to take at the moment. Steam is up for you? Okay, well, that's good. It crashed for me and didn't come back up. I'm going to try and pull it back up. There it is. I just had to refresh it. Okay, Steam, we see you. Okay, we've got every feed back up. Sorry for the delay. Okay, we're going to go back into demonstrating because I don't know where the break in questions was, and I don't want to keep answering questions for the whole stream. But we'll get back into it. So we did answer up to at least 26. So put a break after these questions when I end the next module so I know where to end. So we're going into the object showcase, okay? So we'll jump in and just show you the modular object tool because I have 2 demos in this one. There are a few objects now in Dungeon Alchemist that have a new tab that appears when you play with them. Let me show you an example of one. Quite neat. There is this fun little gobulator. I don't even know what you would call it, really. Pistons. It's you know, just something you would see like in an artificer's lab or a boiler room or any number of, you know, arcane workshops, or it could be part of a steam engine or anything, right? But these things, these are modular pieces that you can go through, and they have these little connection points. And when you click them, a new tab opens up, and you can start adding parts to it, right? You want a new pipe on the end? There, let's click this. And then you see these little pieces. Let's do a bend, a straight piece, a weird vial. Turn the vial off. No, let's change its color to red. And then we're going to add a new piece on the end here that's more spinning vials because I like that one actually. And then, oh, we'll add a new piece that's, you know what I mean? You can essentially just kind of keep adding pieces to it by hand or through the menu up here by the different shapes that appear. So it'll show you, oh, you can add a little pump, or you can add a curve, or you can add a straight line, a short line, a junction, another pump. So you can start adding different pieces to it, and there's also extra pieces in this menu that are tied to those. Oops. You can essentially open this new tab, the Modular Objects menu. You'll notice it appear when you select an object that has it. And then you can start adding all these different pieces to that object. Steampunk is a great, vibe here. So this one here, I added like a bunch of vials and little centrifuges and readout gauges and all sorts of stuff. I just kind of thought it was interesting. Yep. You are definitely talking about the turbo encapsulator right there. Womp. So this object, essentially, these objects, there's several of them that do this. Many different objects work with this. Rails is another one. So you can then grab like a rail piece from the object menu. Any rail piece, put it in your map, right? Once you do, turn to collision. You then click on this piece, opens the rail junctions, boom. I wish once they were tied together, they moved as a unit. That'd be really cool. Once you get this first alignment done, though, it's pretty easy. Boom. Now you got this one, add a straight piece, straight piece, straight piece, straight piece. Let's add a trail, a whole like place around my house. You get the idea though. It's pretty fun. Add a couple. Boy. Just make sure you're adding on to the correct connection. I'm still kind of getting used to which pieces are which myself. But as you see, it's quite easy to just start adding on pieces if you want. Oh, let's say we want one that goes up or down. Let's go up. But the modular object tool is essentially designed to help you with objects that are meant to link together. It just saves you a ton of time. This works with pipes, small and large. So I did the same thing with this. I just made a little exhaust pipe running out to the ceiling, and then I put a geyser, a shrunk down geyser inside to have smoke. But it only took me like 2 minutes to add this pipe piece once I figured out the right distance here. And it just starts from here, and then it's like a bunch of junction pieces all the way up to the top. It's very fun to play with, and there's a few objects that use it. So I would say, rails, big pipes, small pipes, that new little steampunk device. There's a handful of objects that use it. You'll just kind of figure it out as you go, but essentially this tab will open up on objects that it's available to be used on. So if you click on an object that has it, it'll let you know, otherwise the tab won't be there. Me too. So this building will end up actually being the bastion for my party when it's done. And I followed the bastion rules to make it, and we ended up with this like beautiful building. So here's our entrance, which has a courtyard. Hey Polaris, how you doing? Here's our dining room. Here's a sanctuary for our paladin. Here is the parlor, kitchen, pantry. This is going to be our storehouses, 2 of them put together. Yes, actually, I found that out. If you start by scaling an object first, and then you leave the object in the scaled menu at that size. So let's start with the track. I experimented with that yesterday. Let's say you want to shrink the scale down of the tracks to 50% to make like a tiny Toontown little rail around your house, right? Neverland Ranch rail. So you shrink it. Once you have made this one this size, all the linkages will also be that size if you add them from this linkage menu. Otherwise, you'll have to shrink them down by hand, manually. But if you leave the menu at 50%, every object you grab from the menu will also be at 50% until you change it back. It's actually a very, very nice. Hey, Aiko, how are you doing? By the way, Aiko is one of the artists on our team. Can we get some props to Aiko? Amazing work in this update. Love all the work you've been doing. And very, very happy to be showcasing it today. So by the way, I've noticed this object scaling tool. Let's not tell the devs, please. Let's not tell them. Okay, but this works with wall hanging objects. Here, let's see if it works with pits. It does not work with pits. Pits have a locked size, so we know. Okay, but it works with wall-mounted objects. So let's try like this shield, okay? Put it at 50%. There's 50. Or there's 50% next to it. So no longer do you have to use the scaling on the wall trick. So at least wall-mounted objects that are normally locked in size can be scaled using the object scale. I've also noticed if you do it before you place it. Oh no. So if you grab an object, right? Let's start with 100%. Put it out here before you've placed it. If you play with the object scale, it scales it. So before it's been finalized, you can actually manipulate the size using the object scaling menu. That's something I found out yesterday. That's kind of why I love playing with the update before, you know, it's available for this reason, is because I can find little things like that. Hey, Aiko, I'm glad you are here, honestly, and thank you so much for all the hard work you and the team do. Okay, is someone DDoSing me? Like, for real? Will you all let me know back when I'm back up on Steam and Twitter or Twitch? Right now, it looks like I am only live on TikTok and YouTube in vertical format. So it seems like all my wide formats crashed. Which is audible? Okay, you can hear me, but there's no video. Which is back. Oh, okay, so I'm kind of having this weird suspicion that something is wrong with either the streaming software for wide format today, because there was an update in the last couple days, or I'm kind of feeling like I might be getting DDoS'd. It's really weird how it's very specific and none of my frames are dropping, my hardware's fine, everything on my end's showing green. I don't want to point any fingers. It's likely something to do with the stream software and wide format is my biggest guess. Because that's the only places it's crashing right now. And I'm really sorry about this. The stream will run long, though, if it keeps crashing like this. So don't worry. We'll cover every topic. This is so stupid. By the way, if the stream disconnects, I will be back. Do not leave. Come right back. I'll be back in, 5 minutes if it happens. Okay, so we talked about modular objects. We talked about universal object scaling. Let me show you the custom object brush while we're here. So you can grab any object now in Dungeon Alchemist. Any old object. Let's say you wanted to paint a bunch of these shields, but they're not in the object menu to paint them, right? So under weaponry, there's no shields. You select the object, then you go into the object menu and you go to the Paint Objects tab, and you click Create Brush from Selected Object. That will turn it into an object brush. Shield is a bad example, but you get the idea. So this is a great way to turn any old object into a brush. Maybe you want to add a bunch of stumps from an area that was cut down. A bunch of trees were cut down, right? I got to place that stump first. Silly me. Make sure the object is still selected. Turn it into a brush. And by the way, it'll follow any of the brush objects or options you set. So you could set scaling randomness, scaling average, brush density, brush size. I am not recording the VODs locally. I never have to. I've never had this issue. My streams go off with a hitch 99.99999% of the time. I've done 9 reveal streams and this has never happened. So I don't know what's going on. It is a very weird issue. My last 10 streams went perfectly fine without any issues. Unfortunately, you can only paint a singular object for right now. There's no palettes of objects that you can create at this time. Improved object linking. Let's talk about that as well. So objects that used to link together, such as like the connected pull, you may be familiar with this object. Oh, let's set the scale down to 100% so it's not massive. In the past, it would automatically put a rope between these, which if you had a bunch of them, couldn't really clarify which one it would go to. So it looked like a net or a spider web. You can now click the linkage button, tell it which two you want to link, and then link them. So you have much more control over the object linkages than before. So many objects offer linkages in Dungeon Alchemist. There's some poles with chains on them. You could actually have them going in different directions now if you wanted to. So I hope that kind of explains object linkages. Let's take a look at some of the new objects that'll be available in this update. This looks like a good place to just kind of showcase them. By the way, when you load up the new update, if you click this new objects section, it'll go through and show you all the new objects. Now, many objects were objects that were here before but had a facelift, i.e. they had to be adjusted for multi-level. So some of them were facelifted and adjusted in size and shape and given, upgraded textures, and some of them are new. Well, many of them are new. But if you go through here, like there's these like auditorium benches that were added, so now you can do like stadium seating and stuff. Be cool for like at a university or like a dissection theater or operating theater. These new barrels are kind of neat. The barrel racks are cool. Bathtubs. Here's a new little blast room furnace where it could be a jet on or an engine on like a spaceship if you wanted it to be, really. Simple everyday objects like some boots, some grog. A lot of new objects. Here, let's scale everything up to 200% so we can really see them, okay? Boots. I'm happy about this one. This one's mine. Oh no, this is the Plague Doctor's brew. Never mind. So there's several new bottles of wine and you can put custom labels on them, but at least there's some variations. Max Mix. There's these kind of bowls of food. These are really neat because they have like, like a stew in them, like a goulash or something, but you can change them to a bunch of different foods. That one looks kind of like flour or batter. Uh-oh. Anyway. There's even a bread bowl with the same thing in it, so you could switch it between a bunch of different soups. Tons more food, actually. Potatoes. As you can see here, lots of objects like arches and stone stuff. Bunch of new like foods like cabbages. In fact, here, I made a garden with these in back. Let's take a look. Some garden beds are a new thing that you can do too. So there's carrots, leeks, got cauliflower, lettuce, cabbage, and red cabbage. Ooh, the cello is beautiful. Fun new object they added. Just going through a bunch of random new objects that were added. The centrifuge, which I added all those fun pipes to upstairs that we showcased earlier. Here's some blue cheese, Limburger cheese, if you will. So new cheese variants, finally. Remember earlier I showed you that chimney? There's a couple chimneys here. Stone, there's a pipe. Oh, chest plate armor just laying on the ground. A bunch of new armor, actually. Here, let's look at the armor. There's a bunch of new armor stuff and armory stuff. So greaves, helmets, different helmets in different positions, standing armor. That's the traditional one we used to have, right? Armor racks, weapon racks of all kinds. Oh, sorry, weapon racks is what I meant. There is a blank weapon rack, so you could put a custom weapon on it if you got one from the workshop or made one or want to use one that wasn't on a rack. So tons of new weapon racks that are wall mounted and regular. I really like the new suits of armor. Okay. Let's look at a few more objects from the new object menu if we can. Oh, okay. So there's this new asset that's been added that's called the war table, or like war room assets. So you can build a little war table in your conference area or whatever. And here I've built one. Look at it in cinematic. Okay, stop it with the cheese puns. Just kidding. But there's small objects that you can add to the table, little homes, little bases, bridges, and you can add terrain and little like here I put this Pegasus to mark an army. So you can essentially build like a war table with a ton of little objects on it to represent like a place you plan to attack, or your kingdom or whatever, your base. These grapes, the grapevines are new too. Excited for that. The gazebo is new. Is what? That's wood grain underneath that is actually part of the war table to look like a river. So that table has a river grain on it, so you could use it as such. There's several tables that have like this amazing wood grain on them, and they're perfect for the war table use. And there's like 20 or 30 assets you can use on the war table. Plus any other assets you want to just shrink down. Think of what other cool new objects. Uh-oh. Don't crash. This new table, I'm pretty sure that's new. Anyway. Go back into the object menu and just kind of scroll through these. So these are like war table trees. So, it's just like a little thing you put on the map to make a tree or a forest, right? I'm sure you all have seen like a war room with like a table and they have all the little assets on it, like in an old like movie, Like this represents our army. Topiaries, there's a whole bunch of topiaries that have been added, like cut topiaries, and these hedges are a new wall type. I put that all around this like walkway. Here's a dragon. There is a new bar type, these like countertops with like hanging drinks on them. There is tons and tons of like pillars and stairs and stuff were reimagined for the update. What else do we? There's a roulette wheel and board. What is this? A printing press? A whole bunch of new stuff. Anyway, moving on from objects, I think we showcased a good 30 or 40 objects in the update. There's hundreds of thousands of them in the new update, so be prepared. Many objects got updated and facelifted and like depreciated and fixed for the update, and others were just brand new. I don't know why. It's not showing any of the recent maps I've opened today. The build must be not working with it. Speaking of which, I want to load over to a new build, so we're going to take a quick break, okay? While we switch, and then I'm going to be answering questions while we do that. One moment. My multi-stream chat is no longer working either ever since I did the update. Or since I crashed earlier. Oh, okay, multi-stream chat is working. I just refreshed it, so that should help. I'm updating DA right now. We'll be right back. I'm going to run a quick ad. And it's a Dungeon Alchemist themed ad, okay?
But can it handle curves?
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 Dungeon Alchemist, the AI-powered map-making application for role-playing games, now comes with both round and diagonal walls. Create amazing professional maps for your players in seconds. Get it now on the Steam store.
Just a quick reminder, too. Dungeon Alchemist is on sale and will be until we launch on the 10th. So if you're kind of sitting on the fence and looking at Dungeon Alchemist, now is a good time to buy. You can get a 20% discount. So definitely check it out. I thought I did that. Okay. The build has now loaded. Loading in. Sorry for the delay. You're back. So I was told today's build would be smoother, and it only just finished like within the last half hour, so I had to wait for it. Also, I noticed I have a package being delivered in like the next half hour, so I may go away just to go pull it off my porch. Porch piracy is rampant in my community. So you're back. Let's answer some questions from the object module and prior. Sorry for that. Getting my kind of like a little scawampus because between the crashes and little things getting in the way. Okay, so question list. Shoji asked on YouTube, could the grid be made to be lowered by the user? The grid will raise and lower automatically with the level you're on. I don't think the devs will ever give you the ability to raise and lower it manually. But who knows? That could happen in the future. But the grid will go up according to the level you're on. And remember, you can now set the grid on top of everything or toggle it to be, the traditional DA grid or traditional tabletop grid. You have both options. Tara on YouTube asks, talking about the grid outside of isometric, does it follow terrain shaping now? I'm not sure what you mean by that, but let's open a new map and generate a terrain and see what it looks like. It's not going to be a topo map if that's what you mean. Generate some mountains. So we've got mountains, and this is the grid on top of everything. So that's what it looks like. It doesn't wrap to it. It just kind of picks a point. And if you were to build the level, now notice the mountains are higher than the grid. Kind of weird how it renders on it, but under it at the same time. It's interesting. So that's what it looks like on top of mountains. But if you were to build, say, a building over that height, which, by the way, before you generate a structure, you can always raise or lower the structure. You've been able to do this for over a year now. You can also rotate the structure. And you can also make the corners of the building rounded or straight, or have bites, and then generate it. We're going to just generate a blast room up here at this height. Kind of weird that the grid is not in that room. Did I bug out the grid? I must have found a bug. Huh, that's interesting. Cool. Fun. Broken. I have to bring this up with the devs later. Not render. Well, I turned it off temporarily. Should be in the building at least. Oh, there we go. But it should have been in the building minimum, right? Anyway. Yeah, I find bugs a lot. Constantly. And I find the worst bugs, the ones that are like game breaking. Until yesterday, all of the roofing in my roofing menu was invisible. By the way, we'll be covering multi-level and roofing in the next module, the building showcase, after we answer a bunch of questions. So if you're interested in seeing multi-level, how it's done, how to jump between levels, how to add roofing, change roofing, go build underground, all that stuff, that's what we're covering in the next showcase. So here in a few minutes after we answer the questions from the previous one. Okay? Let's see, what is the maximum zoom, unzoom level? So you obviously have your zoom limits in the outside here that have always been kind of fixed with DA, right? How far you can zoom into a space and how far you can zoom out. Now, keeping that in mind, as you jump up levels, right? It will continually raise the camera to adjust, but I do think there is a max amount of levels you can add up and down. So you'll hit a limit eventually. Question. Are you planning on different themes, Shadowrun, Cyberpunk? I'll answer that for the 4th time this stream. After we leave early access and have delivered on all our Kickstarter stretch goals, we will then offer optional paid expansions for different aesthetics, Cyberpunk, sci-fi, etc. Once you buy the add-on, it's an update and plugs all those new assets, rooms, walls, windows, doors into the Dungeon Alchemist builder. Okay. Next, will the object be scalable in each direction, or will they You can always free scale after you scaled the object in the object menu. So if you scaled it up in here to 200% before you dropped it, you can always scale it down manually or up manually or unlock the scaling and go way beyond or below that if you want to. Nothing will stop you to be able to do that just like before, but objects that are locked will be locked. So if it's like a wall-mounted object or a pit, those are locked. I have noticed, though, the object scaling works on wall-mounted objects, but not pits, if you do it prior to putting it out. Nice, Tweagy. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to the Dam fam, as we like to call it. Your name makes me think you're a fan of a very interesting kind of fun sci-fi show from the 70s. Buck Rogers. The 80s. Object scale, we covered that. Mateus asks, will it be possible to create completely round rooms in 3x3? You have to have perfectly divisible equal rooms to make them round. Remember, in Dungeon Alchemist, you can't split a square, okay? So when you have a square on the map in Dungeon Alchemist, you can't split a door between 2 squares, right? You can't split a square in 2. The grid is kind of a critical part of both gameplay and also for generation of rooms and the things inside of it. It relies on the grid to know where to place things and how it should place things. So I don't think you'll ever be able to make a circle of a 3x3. It'll have to be a 4x4, 6x6, equally divisible. So if you can divide it by 2 without breaking a number in half, it can make a circle. And unless you go beyond, you know, like 16 by 16, I think is the max you can go. And then it makes a squircle. It's part square, part circle. Moving on. Antics and rolls. Are there Easter eggs? I don't know of any of the Easter eggs in the next update, Antics. They never tell me. If there's Easter eggs in an update, they do not ever tell me. Once in a while, they'll leak one to me. You know what I mean? But very rarely. Next question. Oh, crashed it. Lettersmith on Twitch asks, will you be able to rotate along other access before placing an object? That's the second time answering the question today. No, not in this update. Fun with Objects was split into 2 pieces. We announced this about 3 months ago. It'll be Fun with Objects Part 1 and Fun with Objects Part 2. First part, launching July 10th, will include multi-level, roofing, and a bunch of features, but it will not include the ability to rotate objects on any axes yet. We're hoping to launch that in the next part, but I cannot guarantee they will be able to do it, mainly because they've struggled to get it to work up to this point. So we'll see. Let's see here. Lettersmith on. VK the Insane from YouTube. Can we eventually get a pause effect toggle? You realize, yeah, it's already in the view menu. If you go to view and hit enable or disable natural animations, that will disable the water and tree animations across the map. That's been in the view menu for like, I think 2 years now. It doesn't get rid of every animation like fire, torches, or like if you put like a pool of water, like from a fountain, the fountain's water won't stop moving, and objects that have animations won't stop moving other than like the natural ones. So if there was a river, a pond you built, or a tree, something like that, they'll stop moving. My favorite thing is now that several features that are constantly asked about, like when is multi-level and roofing going to be here? Can I put the grid on top of everything? Can I block exterior light in my buildings? Those things are asked of me constantly, like daily, to the point where it's almost gotten to the point where I'm kind of, I don't know. It's like when an artist is asked to play the same song thousands of times, they kind of get a slight irritation from it. And I'm not mad at you. I'm more mad it just hasn't been fixed yet. You know what I mean? So at this point, I'm just happy this is now fixed and our community will finally have these features that they've been asking and begging for since I started on the team. Are you sure on that, Mateus? I thought settings that you like, for instance, animations, or like if you reduce the quality in DA to low, that doesn't affect the export quality. I know. All right, everyone. I got to just go grab a package off the porch really quick. I'll be right back. VK, don't add your particle effects until the end. That should be the last thing you add on your map, is effects. So what you want to do is, if you're having trouble with that, because effects are live and they use tons of data and your graphics and your RAM and everything, CPU on max, file, save as, and then do a separate map that you add the effects on last. So you have one without effects and one with effects. That way you're not running a map all the time with 100% of effects on. Okay, I'll be right back. Rodrigo, you would hide unexplored rooms in a virtual tabletop, not in your map maker. So Foundry or something like that. I'll be right back. I'm back. With your current map shown, don't know which map that was because the question was 20 minutes ago. You have an open area on floor 2. Can an object be placed and tracked on a floorless space? So, what's the question you have there? Let's see here. Can an object be placed and tracked on the floorless space? Yeah, you can have a floating object just like you can anytime. Are you saying you just want to put a floating object? That's what you're saying? It depends on the object, really. I mean, most objects would just snap down to the floor because it considers it a new floor. But some objects, if they're like, say, objects that would snap to like the edge of something or whatever, they may snap up here, depending on their placement. It really just depends on the object. But yeah, you can place objects from both floors all the way up to the 3rd floor with ease. I'm hoping that's what you're asking. I'm not 100% certain what you want from that question. This question's really throwing me. I'm not 100% certain what you're asking. Well, I hope I answered it. I'm sorry. I'm lost a little bit. Sorry, I try my best to answer all these questions, but I think my brain's getting a little scrambled. Okay, next question. Archmage from YouTube asks, can you make a step down on the floor, for example, create a cooking pit? I mean, in any past version of DA, if you wanted to put a pit in a room or put a hole in the room, you just deleted a space from the room. Once it's, oh, I'm on the 2nd floor. That won't work. Go down to this bottom floor. You just delete this portion of the room, and now it's technically considered outside. Okay? At that point, you could then just put a fire pit here and sink it down a little bit if you wanted to, or put a long, fire pit. This is something that's been available for like 2-3 years, but there is a new feature that makes it easier where you can just remove floor tiles now. So you don't have to delete the room anymore. This new feature is now available in the next update. So now you could just delete floor tiles. That's considered outside now for all intents and purposes, which means you can lower it. So you could sink it down into the abyss if you wanted to, or put a fire there and make it a fire pit. So yes, you could, in essence, have a fire pit or a hole in the room. Several different ways to approach it. Either one, remove the floor tile, like I just did, or 2, delete the room from the space. If you want a levitating object, all you do is disable collisions and raise the object up. Now it's levitating. This is something, yeah, this is, when you disable collisions, it's several things happen all at once. It allows you to put objects closer to each other, like merge them together. It allows you to raise objects up and down, and it allows you to scale objects far beyond or below their normal constraints. As long as there's not a lock on it, normally like where it shows a no symbol there, like then you could scale it way up or way down. No wall will appear there if you delete. What do you mean delete the wall? It just deletes the floor tile there. Please preface your questions with the word question for better visibility, and so my mods can add them to a question sheet list that we answer in the order they were received. Okay, thank you. Sorchin. Is the roof considered a floor? Yes, the roof is considered a floor. I honestly don't think, what I've been told is we plan to offer up to 5 levels up and 5 levels down. If you need more than 5 levels, I mean, the levels are being broken up into separate maps anyway, so just make a new map for floor 5 through 10. Just like you would normally if you had separate floors, it would be separate maps now. So do the first 5 floors in map 1, and then the second floor, the floors after that in map 2. Unfortunately, I've been told that the hard limit's 5 floors. However, I have seen maps with 6 floors. So I know it's possible, but 6 floors up, but I think they may hard limit it before the launch just to keep it in a smoother area of performance, like a gray area where it runs better. Anyway, moving on. Odrock Osseron from Utah, YouTube asks, any plans to build on not solid ground? Like I wanted my party to have a campaign raiding a ghostly airship, a tavern suspended by giant chains over a vast cavern up in the mountains. I mean, pretty much already possible. There's maps that do this on the workshop. You could take a ship and just raise it up, call it a ghostly airship. The, maps with chains, you would just have essentially something that's like forced perspective. Until we offer, ships and, sky biomes, you're going to have to get creative. But like this map here has chained islands next to it, islands down below, airships off in the distance. And it's a combination of forced perspective and cleverness. They made the backdrop using an abstract image that's just clouds, and they put some effects on top of it. This isn't really what I would like to showcase today. I'd really like to answer questions from the Fun with Objects update. But since we're doing levels, I guess people want to know if you can do a floating building. You cannot do a floating building in this update, not at least with the tools given. If you want to do something like a floating island or an airship, you have to use a combination of objects and forced perspective. So you scale objects down to put them farther in the distance, to make them seem far away. Have you ever seen a picture of someone holding someone in their hand where they're way behind them and it makes them look small? That's forced perspective. Realistically, we know that person's probably 5-6 feet tall, but they're so far away they look tiny. So when you shrink an object down and put it off in the distance, it looks small and it feels like it's further away. Honestly, Swamp, once you get up that high, I wouldn't recommend adding levels by hand because you'll probably surpass the camera limits really quick. Think about it. They're raising the camera manually to adjust to each level to adjust to these new heights, but it did have a hard limit before where it would start cutting off objects. So this here, for instance, is, we've got airships that were from the workshop downloaded and added. There's little tiny houses on a teeny bit of land over there. But when you look at this in top down, it looks like a floating island with other islands chained to it, just kind of drifting. That was the intent of this map. Now, The one thing I want to point out in this map that is actually an interesting concept, notice here it says multi-level is not supported on legacy maps. So when the next update launches, you'll still be able to open your old maps. You'll be able to open maps from the workshop. You can edit them, you can make changes, but you will not be able to add multi-level to a map that was made prior to the Fun with Objects launch. So it'll show this little icon over here and letting you know. Rhinos Occultos RPG on Twitch asks, how will the export of floor maps work for multi-level maps, right? That's what you're curious about? So currently when you export a map for Foundry, what happens? Or for any virtual tabletop we support. It includes the map, whether it was an image or a video that you exported it as, and then the accompanying data file, right? So it includes the map and the data file. The data file for Foundry is a JSON file, correct? So in the instance of Foundry, if you have a multi-level map, i.e. say multiple floors, when you export the map, watch this, it'll show you. It shows every level. Here is the basement or the cellar, the first floor, the second floor, the third floor, and the fourth floor. Okay? It'll export each level as a separate map, a separate image or video, however you set it up. So if you do a Foundry export as an image, it'll export 5 separate images and 5 JSONs. Each of those levels is a floor, and you set them up as a separate scene on your virtual tabletop of choice. So in your case, Foundry. Foundry has modules like levels or Monk's active tiles that when you get to like a staircase, it'll automatically load the next scene. So you have all these scenes perfectly linked together. They transition fluidly because they match perfectly. And your players, if they get to a staircase or jump up to the next level, fly up, whatever they do, then you just load the new scene. Okay, let's get on to the next segment, which is multi-level. I know a lot of you want to see multi-level and you're itching to see it, and I'm sorry that it's taken so long to get to this point between the crashes and the package getting delivered and the confusion and the questions, and there are no breakages in them earlier. We kind of got lost. So, we're going to get into the next section, which is to reveal multi-level building and how it works, okay? I'm going to show you a few aspects of it first. So let's open up a new map and we'll dive into all these new features, just kind of in a space that allows us to experiment. By the way, mods, if there are questions that aren't related to the update and you can quickly answer them, please just answer them and don't add them to the list. Try to keep the questions on the list tied to Fun with Objects so we can keep it themed. If there are questions related to DA, you know the answer, just answer them, and we can try and get those not added to the list. If it's something you're not sure, then add it to the list, and I'll do my best to answer it. But people, please try to keep the questions tied to the Fun with Objects update, what we're showcasing today. I know some of you may be new to our community, and I'm sorry you jumped into the stream today. Normally, streams, you can ask any questions you want, and I will answer them. AMA format, which means ask me anything, but today's stream, we're showcasing our next update, which is launching on the 10th. It's a very, very special stream where we're showing all these new features that will be available, new quality of life improvements, new objects, stuff like that. So we're trying to cover all that information, but at the same time, we're trying to make sure that all questions are being answered. That's why we're asking people to preface it with a question, preface a question with the phrase question, so our mods know it's a question relevant to the update and you want to get it answered in the order it was received. Otherwise, if they're simple, support questions, mods, feel free to answer them, or anyone in chat that knows the answer. Let's go ahead and build a structure. So let's talk about new room types. There are several new rooms available in this update. I'll make a 10 by 10 shape here. And if I wanted to, I guess I could just make this circular. Make this burn. So the first room type is burnt. So imagine, if you will, a space that is just charred. The particular wall in this one wasn't impressive. Usually there's 2 wall types. See if we can recycle it a few times. There's a wooden one and a stone one. Weird. Huh. I'm going to just generate a square and see what happens. I'll bring that up with the devs, though. Stand by. Oh, no wood. Weird. Hey, we're getting some wood paneling. Still sewn. Anyway, there's a wood version and a stone version that look like they've both been burnt down, and there's several wood panels and the like. These here. Usually it's a good mix and match of them, but it looks like my build isn't really putting out the right walls right now. The burnt house is very cool. There's some burnt objects to add to the mix. Burnt flooring. We're going to try generating a fresh one. Hey, there we go. There's a bit of wood. It did it that time. I don't know why it didn't do it before, but there's like ash inside, burnt objects. And guess what? Let's add a roof. So if you want to add a roof, there's pretty much, if you want to add a new floor or add a roof, you can either click the up arrow here, or you can press the plus key. There's already burnt roofing types that'll add automatically, one that's like the best fit for it. But maybe you don't want a burnt roof. So you could switch it to different types. The roofing menu has over 20 different roofs available at the start, and we'll be adding more and more as we go. So that was kind of like the before, the after. So burnt roof is one of the types, the new room types. Mausoleum is a new room type. Oh, I'm on floor 2. If you're ever on the upper floor, it won't let you draw if there's not a floor below it. So let's make a mausoleum. So if you wanted a little burial room, like a fancy mausoleum, regenerate this a few times, see what it pops up. Do a different shape. Make it a square and see what it does. Or was that square? Either way. So it can add some pillars if it gets larger. Not bad, actually. Usually mausoleums are meant to like inter one person or a family, right? The light through the windows looks really cool. Yeah, these here, the slits. What I like is playing around with the light and rotating it a bit. You can see like the time of day. Feels so good though. Okay, now what's the next room type? This one's actually my favorite new room type in the update, called wonky. Wonky house. So wonky is what it reminds me of is the wood is like reclaimed wood, right? It's just like driftwood or pulled off of pallets and anything they could find it, and then they turned it into a home, right? it's a little scawampus and off kilter, and maybe the person wasn't necessarily, you know, like a carpenter, but it could be like a cool kobold hut or anything to that nature. Just a fun little like ramshackle hut. Twiggy, there is not a video that breaks down all the hotkeys. That's a good idea, though. But we do have a wiki entry that shows all our hotkeys. Can someone link him the page to our wiki on YouTube that show, or Twiggy on YouTube, the link to our wiki that shows like all the hotkeys available? By the way, most hotkeys in DA, like if you look inside a menu, it'll show you the hotkey for an item when you hover over it. Or like when you're in the object menu, it shows hotkeys down here. Control, toggle, snap to grid, shift, place multiple. Also the help menu, if you, or the help menu, and you look at like how to draw a room, it shows some basic stuff in each of them. Some of them actually show hotkeys and different things like that. Like the little tutorials that you went over when you started. These are actually hopefully getting a facelift too, to kind of update around the update itself, because there's a lot of changes. But we do have a wiki page that's got like tons of information. Think of it as like a manual that constantly gets updated with new info. And it has a page with all of our hotkeys, including a hidden kind of like hotkeys. Okay, so we talked about a couple of the new room types. Let's show you the roof on this one. Might as well try a couple of different roofs. So you have the roofing menu, right? So if you want to change a roof on a building, you just click a roof and click on the building. Very, very simple and straightforward to change a roof. They have tons of different shapes and options available. The roof will automatically fit to the entire shape of the room, right? But if you have multiple rooms in a building, oops, get out of this roof. Let's say there's a room over here and an adjacent shape off of this over here. I'm just adding these all to the structure, right? Now let's show the roof. It actually automatically adjusts around all of it if it's the same roof, but let's say you wanted them to be different roofings in different parts or different rooms. So you can apply a different roof to a different room, or you can merge them together if they're all the same. Say this was an add-on made later, it wouldn't have the same shingles, right? Or they wouldn't look the same. Or maybe they're different buildings in the complex, or different neighbors have different roofing sometimes. So it's a good idea to be able to either change it on the fly to all match or have separate roofing parts. So there's also flat roofing. If you want like a deck. Because there's angled and flat, there's at least 40 roof options available at launch. Right, a flat roof pub with like a facade would be cool, huh? Like the front facade, like the old Western saloon. Now, remember, if you have questions related to these features, preface the question in chat with the phrase question, and after we're done demoing all these features, we'll answer your questions in the order they were received. By the way, this update's launching July 10th, and Dungeon Alchemist is on sale for 20% off between now and July 10th on the Steam Summer Sale. So if you're watching, you're like, wow, this is cool, I want this. Best time to buy is now. You'll never get a better deal. Alternatively, if you have a friend or family member, or you know that DM you love who you want them to have these next tier maps, go ahead and send them a copy. Get them on board. Gift that DM you love with with a copy of Dungeon Alchemist, because that'll make them say, "Damn." Anyway, so we've covered 3 room types. Okay, let's cover the next room type here over here in this area. We have a topiary, which is under, I believe, the mansion. Be great on a castle. Oh, go down to the next level. Little topiary gardens with new hedge walls, half hedge walls or full. So maybe you don't like these walls, right? Let's look at the walls, the naturals. There's a half hedge wall. Perfect for, you know, hedge mazes or whatever, but these are great for this topiary setup. Anyway, we also have a new room type in the village called crop bed. So now you can just generate a plot of land and it's filled with crops. Or not. Farms have never been easier. Okay. So we've got crop beds, topiaries, wonky rooms, mausoleums, and burnt houses are the new room types in the next update. So that's all the new rooms you're going to be getting in the next update. Now let's talk about, actually, no, there's one more room type that's tied to this. Balconies. So let's go up a level, okay? I want to put a balcony on this. There's a new room menu called balcony, and there's pretty much a balcony type for every type of stone or major types. And with that, you can just draw a balcony if you wanted, say, over this here. You could put a stair up to this, or if you had a room up here, right? Let's say I had an upstairs part of this tavern. Now there's a balcony leading outside. But wait, maybe I want to see the tavern down below, right? Because there's no access point here. Let's remove the floor and have a little balcony. Don't want to remove. We could put some half walls around there, like a banister and a staircase coming up if you want, or a ladder. We can go into the stair menu. Be sure those are wonky stairs. By the way, if you put a stair in a room, it'll automatically, dynamically cut the staircase area around it if it needs more room to fit. Does that make sense? So if you actually, here, let's undo all this. If I'm on this bottom floor here and I want to add a stair going up to the next level, watch what happens. I can put this in right here, right? And then when I go up to the next level, it dynamically cut the holes for that. So it puts it in there automatically for you if you put it on the lower level. Now, let's say I wanted to see down here like a balcony, right? Like a mezzanine or whatever. And then I could put in some walls. Let's go to do a fence. Now you have a balcony looking into the lower part of a pub with an upstairs portion. The stairs are actually really nice, and you can navigate up and down them in first person now, too. By the way, let's say I wanted this vaulted instead of having this floor here, right? So let's go down to the bottom floor. I need to delete this extra room I made. Make this all one big room, okay? Instead of 3. This is all one room now, right? Let's say I wanted this to be a vaulted ceiling up 2 levels. So I go up the next level, right? I'm gonna need this floor. Balcony. And you go up to this floor, right? Let's say you wanted to go up 2 levels. So I'm gonna just add this whole floor like a big thing, right? And then you simply erase this level from existence while keeping the height. So you just erase the floors. Now you have a vaulted room that's like 20 feet tall or so, or whatever it is. You could keep going up this way too and keep adding more and more. Yeah, I experimented with the house builder a lot, just trying to get a feel for it, because there's a lot of changes. There's a lot of changes in your workflow now. But you could do like lofts and have like a place up there, and oh my gosh, but just look at this. This is, and by the way, pillars automatically extend, dynamically extend to the building shape they're in. So if it goes up this high, the building does, then the pillar extends that high. Isn't that insane though? Here, let's go inside with a token and take a look. I do wish we had ceilings that matched the floor type in here. Like wonky is kind of like whatever, or maybe it matches the floor. I don't know what the ceiling is about, because I've seen like 5 or 6 different ceiling types and I don't know what determines it. Is it the roof? Is it the floor? Is it the room type? I don't know. Let's change the roof a few times, see what happens. What do you guys and gals say? Let's try this one. Same roof. Or same ceiling. I'll ask the devs how to change the ceilings later. But isn't it cool that you could vault them up like this? Like a big, huge cathedral is what I'm thinking this would be amazing for. That's like the main use case. Yes. It should dynamically extend to the, if it's the pillars that are intended to dynamically extend, yes. So look, if we grab a pillar, called, yeah, this called a, oh, it's just wonky. Let's just try any pillar. See? Automatically did this, whereas normally it outside, oh, normally if you did it outside, it would be much smaller. Fireman's pole, right? Yeah, definitely. If you have a round enough one, you could do it. I guess you could just use the mini pipe and make a pole all the way up. You know what I mean? Whoa. Whoa. Did y'all see that, or am I crazy? Get underground. Gremlin. Either way. If you shrunk this down before you made it, then they would be like as thin as like a regular pole. Anyway, let's generate a new map so I don't have to work with all this weirdness. There is a Mac Mini. That's my son. We call him Mini Mac for copyright reasons. Okay, so we've shown how to remove floor tiles. Okay. We've shown multi-level and level switching. We've shown a bit of roofing, but let's talk about some more, actually. Let's load up one of my maps that I've been working on. Waiting for this map to generate. Hopefully it won't crash. I'm Mac the Elder. No, I'm Big Mac, but also not Big Mac. Hey, see you later, Bruce. Thank you for being here. Let's talk about roofing some more, okay? This building has many different, like, rooms, okay? There's bathrooms, workrooms, library, hallway, room, right? This is a bastion, so it's intended to be a bastion for 6 players. When you have that many rooms, you could have them all be technically separate pieces of roofing. Each area could be its own roof, like the hallway could be one roof. Or you could start merging them together until you get one you're happy with, right? I answered most of Bruce's questions immediately because I knew that I was the one monitoring TikTok. I wish there was just like change all on this building, but it's good enough. It's still pretty good. Right, Ariel? But as you can see, there are a lot of roofing options. Flat roofing and angled roofing. There's some that are like domed. There's tents. There's various shingle types, terracotta, slate. There is thatch. Yeah, it is fun. Yeah, there is a skeletal. By the way, if you don't want an angled roof, you can do a flat roof. Perfect for like a decking or a patio up there, right? So roofing is actually very straightforward and simple. And like I said, there's flat roofing and angled roofing, several different types of angled roofing. I know there is a question on it if you could break a part of the roof away. As far as I know, really the only thing you can do is change the roof in a section or have no roof at all. Once you add a level, there's roofing there, right? Automatically until you add a new floor to get rid of it. So if you add a new floor in this section at this height, it'll get rid of the roofing at that level and add a floor, right? And then you could go back into the floor tool and remove portions of it to see down inside, or remove this wall altogether by hiding it, or even generate it without it. See, I could have generated this section blank if I wanted to, just by deselecting all this in the AI menu. So now it's just like a flat deck, you know, on half of the building. At which point I could cut out, you know, some of the floor tiles. And then, yeah, but you can't break a section of the roof, at least not yet. The only broken roof would be the burnt roof. I don't think there's any that are destroyed otherwise. Okay, let's go to building underground. I'll make a new map for this. This is our last section in this showcase, or last thing to share in this showcase. And then we will be answering questions until we wrap up, okay? So just like you can build up, right? You can also build down. So here's our first floor, pretty normal. Oops, we generated this without anything. Let's generate it with some stuff. Behold, my stuff. You would probably want to use either an object roof or an open space there. Get rid of the roof in that room. You can actually, another way to get rid of a roof in a room is this tool, by the way. If you go in here, you can remove the roof in a tool entirely. You don't have to delete it like I did. So if you go into the edit room tool, remember how you could do immersion roofing? This now actually just gets rid of the roof entirely. Doesn't seem to block the exterior light when you remove the roof, which makes sense. There's no roof there now, right? No, that makes sense. If you want a building without a roof, that's how you do it. Okay. Moving on. Moving on up to the east side. Okay. If you want to build down, just like before, when you press up or plus to go up, you press minus or press down to go down. So now you got some Minecraft type stuff here where you can build underground, and you can even snake off of that to do like tunnels and passageways. The outline is very helpful. It's very, very thick when you're underground. Also, you can press this to hide like all the ground so it's not as distracting. So it's just kind of like a floating thing. But watch this. I'm going to put a... Actually, let's put a hatch on the top here. No, you know what? I'll do a spiral stair. I think a wizard would have a fancy staircase, right? We'll put one in this corner. So staircase, let's find something spiraling. Up above, it dynamically cut a hole for where the stair will go. All it really needs is some banisters and you're good to go. So you could grab like a freestanding banister if you want, or a regular wall and add it there. I just like the standing ones because they have more versatility. If you generate a curved building, the roof will be curved. Please preface all questions with the question tag. Thank you. But you could keep building off of this if you want. Okay, let's generate a round building. Generate a round structure. Whatever the structure shape is, the roof will dynamically adjust to it. Our lead dev, Carl, is a bit of a genius. He developed a brand new, well, he essentially tweaked an algorithm that only a handful of people in the world know how to use to customize it for use to generate roofing and like the angles it does automatically. So depending on the shape of the building, it'll dynamically adjust the roofing to that shape. Weird that it's letting me generate this at up in the middle of... I just generated a floating room. Okay, whatever. I guess you can generate a floating room. Happens if I delete these. So you just got to generate a one below first, right? Oh, that's all the structure underneath. You can see the floor below because it's just being exposed. That's actually one of my favorite things in the terrain tool. You can actually like peel back the terrain and see the building underneath it. So like if you do a like a lower terrain, it's like you're like archaeological dig. Oh, maybe not. Oh, did they fix it? Huh. Oh, they fixed it. Before you could reveal the building, but I guess it'll always leave terrain over it now. Bummer. Before you could like dig back and see the building down below. Now you could just see its shape. That's interesting. But notice, oh, this is what I'm going to do. Actually, I'm just going to undo this a couple of times. Okay. I'm going to generate just the tiniest little structure over here in the corner that doesn't matter. Okay. Maybe. Now that I've got second level, I'm going to make a floating tower that is round. I don't think the devs intended you to be able to do this. I don't know if this will be patched out or not. So just letting you know, this may not be in the final build. Floating tower. And then you could just keep building off of that. But the key to getting it even higher than this, right, is to start by expanding this place as much as you can. So if you extend the little tower to say 5 floors, this is silly workaround, but hey, if you want a floating building, you gotta crack a few eggs to make an omelet, right? So now I'm 5 floors up and generate a round structure that is floating. And then delete this other room. Will it stay is the real question, right? I guess you could just build a building and delete the floors below it, but then the ground will be round at that one floor. Come over here now, we've got a floating tower that we can keep building up on if we wanted to, technically. Look at what this looks like underneath. This looks like it's going to be bugged. Whoa, okay, that's pretty cool, actually. I like it. Floating tower for the win. I think the devs should leave this in, even as a bug. Okay. So the whole point of this demo was to show building underground. I got a little distracted. Didn't build anything underground. See, there's a cellar there. Going down to an underground level. You could extend off of this underground level if you want. Keep building more to it and have rooms and other places going into extended areas, blah, blah, blah. I think that line is the structure above. That's right. It is. You get the idea, though, right, people? You could keep going underground if you want, so go lower, right? You could have a hatch and go lower than that. You could have multiple floors underground, have places that snake underground and go to another tower on the other side of a river or something, so it goes under the river. You can do all sorts of stuff with underground building. So keeping that in mind, from what I've been told, you can go 5 levels down and 5 levels up in the same map, at least for now. That is kind of the standard. So does everyone kind of understand underground building? You just basically press negative to go underground, keep going down levels, and you can keep building lower and lower. It's essentially just like building above ground, just under. By the way, when you're building levels, like if you want to build up, add a stair to your room before you build up. That way, the stair will dynamically cut into the room above, ready to go. It doesn't know you're going to build multi-level when you generate your first floor. The AI isn't that smart. It's a dumb AI. Procedural AI is last gen AI. So it's pretty dumb. So it can't predict your feelings and thoughts. So you have to kind of build around it by putting a staircase in to compensate, right? And then when you generate the new floor, it's got a dynamic cut for it. Okay. So I have done all the demo with multi-level stuff. Let's go into another map really quick. Jim, just like before, how you could raise a structure if you wanted it up on a mountain before you built it, you just raise it up and put it on the mountain, then generate it and start doing floors down and up from the foundation. Okay, I'm going to go back to the question list after I get this next map to load. Okay, I see the question now. The linking should... Oh, did DA just crash? No, I was looking away reading and it crashed. No, DA, no. Oh, you'll be able to diggy hole because you can have a big frontward facing structure on a mountain and dig into the mountain, dig into the down into the mountain. All your wildest dreams will come true. Honestly, yeah, Twitch and YouTube and like all these platforms have been crashing all day. Honestly, I kind of felt like I was getting DDoS'd a little bit because it was so strategic and only a handful of platforms all crashing. That or all those platforms were dependent on the same like AWS or Cloudflare or something and it wasn't working. That's the only thing I could think of. Like, it was weird. I don't like to blame anyone, but this is the type of stream. If someone was going to DDoS us, this would be the one to do it, right? Love this view. We'll leave this here. Oh, 1 second. Questions are back up. Let's check out the linking between lightning objects, like current, right? I think the linking is better on all. What is it? Coil, right? Oh, no, they didn't do it on these. I do need to bring that up with Quentin. Let me just ping him really quick. I'm going to send this to one of the devs so they can take a look at it. I don't think we'll get an answer right. Okay. Sent that off to Quentin. So there's that. Sorry, Rev, I don't have the answer. But I honestly thought all object linkage got improved, so they might have overlooked that. Let's see if any of the battery had that. Nope, it didn't. What other things? Yeah, I wish you could change the linkages and say where you want it linked. Next question. Are there physics for things like that? Like you have a dangling rope, let it swing? They do kind of actually. Dangling, like when you connect a rope to another thing, it actually dangles for the first second. Watch. Well, did normally. I guess it was too hot there. I've seen them like swing around and do stuff in the past. But usually when you connect two of them the first time, they dangle and like kind of dip. But it looks like it's pretty taut there. So in order, it'll be a very taut pull. It won't have much dip between it unless it's kind of close. But watch when it connects to this new pull. Watch how it kind of swings for a second. Oh, never mind. Well, in the past, they used to. They might have gotten rid of those ragdoll physics. They had a little bit of like a little dab to them, and they kind of ebb and flow a little bit right when you place them. Next question. Is there a limit to the distance of an object can link to another? Good question. I have not tried that. Do a connected pole here. We'll do a connected pole over there. I guess there is a distance that it'll recognize the other device because right now it's not seeing that as a possibility. There. So there is a distance range, but once you've connected them, you could extend it far beyond it. So if you connected them closer, you could just pull it way beyond it. But I think they'll only connect up to a certain point initially. So if you had one like right here, recognizes it. Recognizes it. Doesn't recognize it. So it's probably a good, 10 squares or so at least. To 12 squares. These are all stock for them. This build is all stock. This was done in the new update, so that's how the multi-level was achieved in this. Okay. Important question. Does the war table include a push stick? I don't think it does. I'll ask them, but I don't think there's time in this update to add any more objects. It'll probably be in Fun with Objects too. VK the Insane, question from my 4-year-old daughter. Can you make a tower of flowers? Interesting. Like a vine tower or, you know, a tree tower or a tower of flowers would be a cool, or a cool room type. That's an interesting concept. Thank you for that suggestion. Travel, Chim, ceiling looks like floor material with the options that look like ceiling. Good question. I don't know. It looks like for right now, they're just saving time by making them the floor materials and making them flat. Whether they'll make them vaulted and have support beams or different types. Will it look like the tiles on the outside from the inside? I don't know. Can't speak to that right now, unfortunately. Okay, Half Ogre asks, are there curved balconies? Yes, just the balcony is a room tool. You can shape any room. You can make them angled and curved and all sorts of stuff. Just like you can shape the room tool. So here's a curved balcony. You could have an external curved balcony if you wanted that's rounded, like a little bump out. Of course. So any room shape you can make currently, you can turn into a balcony. Ooh, what just happened? No. Chim, I think when it comes to roofs with like a big telescope, you'll either just have to have the telescope poking out or find a roof with a hole in it or cut a hole in the roof so it can poke out. I.e. get rid of the flooring in that place so there's like put a separate room in the center and then delete the roofing in that piece so the telescope can stick out. By the way, there was a question earlier. Be able to port maps into Tailspire? Probably never. Tailspire is an enclosed ecosystem. They won't allow us to import our maps to them or even custom assets, as far as I know. You can only import Hero Forge tokens to their system. So, no. By the way, Dungeon Alchemist does not export at a 3D model, as a 3D model. It exports as a flattened top-down image or video in either a flattened perspective or a 3D kind of bubbled fisheye perspective. So we don't actually export as 3D. So it's not even a matter of, you know, compatibility so much as it's just not even the same file types. So it's a double incompatibility. They don't offer any third-party integration, and we don't offer 3D exports, nor do we plan to anytime soon. At least for the interim, I don't think the devs plan to make the changes needed to make Dungeon Alchemist export in 3D for third parties. If they did, they'd probably make it just to make our own VTT that would be much more compatible with, you know, Dungeon Alchemist as a whole. Let's see here. Does the thickness of a map terrain increase if you add more? Yes, it does. If you add more underground floors, the terrain down below gets thicker from the side. Let's see here. Salsa Doom. How would I add a collapsed roof to a tunnel? You would probably have to get creative. You would likely have to cut a section of floor out from the building above using the remove floor tile. Right? And then add some objects above to make it look collapsed because it looks very uniform and neat. You would probably put like some broken wood on top of it, detritus, to make it look like a hole. Or that it broke. So I cut a hole in the room. So now I can lower the terrain here. And I could even have a room below that's like a chasm or just a cave below, whatever. I'm just kind of demonstrating this so you see a hole, right? On the top of it, you would put like just broken, ruined objects to make it look like it collapsed. Is all the rubble. That's what I'm looking for here. Some wood. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to make this work, but we would have to kind of just get a little creative with it. Just a bunch of broken stuff around the edge to kind of simulate that it broke and fell in. And then you could make this seem like either there's a floor below they could see because you had a room right below, right? Or alternatively, you could put like an image in there, like an abstract, to make it feel like a bottomless pit. So I'm going to put an image in there that's like full black, dark image. So now it just feels like it falls forever. So if there was a room below, you could fall into the room below, whatever. But simulating a broken space is going to be a little tricky for now. You're going to need to put a bunch of objects on it to make it feel like it broke and collapsed in. You know what I mean? Even an image might be better. Like if you used an abstract image around this edge that looked like a bunch of broken wood, it was like splintered and going like this, and sat it over it, it could potentially work. So like these green things, you can insert a custom image into it, right? Use like this round one around the edge. Drop it down right to it. And so it could look like all broken, and in the center it would just be like PNG blank. So it could look like splintered wood kind of breaking into a center part. Either way, it's going to be tricky to do right now if it's a broken thing. If it's just a stair going down or a hole going down to another place, very easy to do now because you can just remove a floor from any room. That white oval abstract is from the market, from the workshop. It's not a stock object. Notice that object, that icon there? The download. Metalcat, Dungeon Alchemist does not support multiplayer. It's a map maker and immersion tool. So you make the maps in Dungeon Alchemist, you export it to your gameplay tool of choice for multiplayer, i.e. a virtual tabletop like Foundry, Roll20, or Fantasy Grounds, or if you print the map to play in person or export it for a TV tabletop. You don't actually play in Dungeon Alchemist. It's something we don't recommend doing because it's not built for it. Now, that being said, despite our best efforts, our community does play inside of DA when they play locally on a TV tabletop. Usually they'll set it up like this, hide the UI, right? Turn on the grid, and then they can put tokens right on top of the TV, right? And I wish I could go into hide user interface and jump between floors. Hold on. All right, just had to write something down, a note I wanted to talk to the devs about. Okay, questions. What's left? So Metalcat, Dungeon Alchemist likely won't support multiplayer in it, at least for the interim future, until it becomes a VTT, i.e. we support VTT features, virtual tabletop play features. Our devs have committed to, at some point, to doing VTT light type stuff, but I think it's going to be a standalone application, not built into Dungeon Alchemist. Because you start adding all that bloat in and it'll just run really poorly. So it'll likely be something that is a standalone tool that supports Dungeon Alchemist maps the best with like 3D and integration. Okay. Next question. Kane. Can you link chains, ropes to unrelated objects like walls, roofs? Essentially, if you want to do something like that, you would just have to hide an object that has a rope at the top. Let me show you. So you'd put it on the roof to just make it, right? And then put one on the ground. right? Then once they're linked, just shrink this down to make it tiny. Might want to move it a little bit. Right at the corner there. Kind of like how you can hide a light inside something. You could also just merge the pull into the wall and hide it like that. Chains, pulls, you could do this. Basically, just make sure you disable collisions and hide the item inside something else. Zip line, clothing lines between houses, you get the idea. And shrinking it will always help, but keep in mind you may have to raise it up if you shrink something, if you wanted it connected at a certain point. There we go. Eduardo, when exporting multiple levels of the perspective view, does all the layers align with the floor camera changes? It'll be just like normal, just in a higher view. It's no different than the normal export. It's just each level is its own layer. So it won't export 4 layers in a single scene. It exports 1 layer at a time, but whatever's visible in that layer happens to be visible below. So if you export in a perspective like this, this is roughly what it will look like down below. So you'll be able to see the decks down below other than what's under them. You know what I mean? So your players, if they were on this patio here, this deck, they could see everything down below to a degree. And then if they wanted to, they could go to the stair, transition to the floor below, and then you load that new scene, and then they'd be able to see all of this instead. And then not only really see, you know, the level above them if they were in first person. So if you put in a first person token and streamed it for them, for sure. But the exports have been gone over with a fine-tooth comb. They work very similar to the existing system. It's just each level is essentially exported at that height for that level perfectly. So the camera doesn't shift dramatically for each level. It's just raised up for that level. So it's like the level moves, the camera moves. There's no real changes happening here. If you want to zoom in closer to the ground than you currently can, the cinematic camera is your friend, Bentamar. Kane, there's hundreds of animated objects inserted into the workshop already. They work in your maps, but there's no interactable cue for them when you're in first person or cinematic camera to enable them or disable them. You would have to do it manually from the object's UI menu through the play pause button on the object. So you can import animated objects. You can even import an object with multiple animated states. And then the play button will show 2 plays, like a fast forward, that you can just keep pressing over and over, and it'll skip between the different animations. So it'll cycle between them. But unfortunately, you cannot go up to it in first person and trigger said animation. Not yet, at least. That would have to be a quality of life improvement from the import menu, or the asset importer. We have added a few quality of life improvements, and it needs a few more. That's a great suggestion for it. Half Ogre, thank you for the kind words. You know, now that I've answered everyone's questions, can I answer a couple of questions really quickly, or ask a couple of questions? What do y'all think of what you saw today? I'd love to get your feedback. Hey, mods, can one of you grab these positive comments and throw them into a fresh document or a fresh sheet or another tab on this sheet so we can have all the feedback for the devs? By the way, if you enjoyed today's stream and liked what you saw, please ping us on social media, letting us know you enjoyed the stream, you enjoyed the reveal, you're super excited, or hop in Discord and talk about it, because people are going to be chatting about it there too. So you enjoyed it. What's your most after they've given their feedback on this one? You don't need to take any more notes on this, but I just want to hear I want all the positive, feedback, and negative too. If there's any negative, put in that sheet so I can pass it on to the devs. Gib now. Well, if you need Gib now, just go turn on some Studio Ghibli. I know what you want, Asgard. I get it. Honestly, soon, TM. The 10th, we're launching the update, so very, 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 very soon. In addition to that, we're on sale right now through the 10th. It's just fortuitous timing. Really good deal for everyone. New update. Great deal on Dungeon Alchemist. So let's figure out what everyone's new favorite feature is. Is it roofing? Is it multi-level? Is it abstract lighting? Modular objects? Love to know what your thoughts are. The release date for Fun with Objects is July 10th. If you mean the overall leaving early access date, we don't have a date for that yet. Dungeon Alchemist is available in early access already, so it's available on Steam. What is my favorite feature? Yes, all. I'm really excited that you can block exterior light from interior rooms. That to me is like one of the most powerhouse features in the update. Look at these are from windows from the upper level right here. There's light leaking right there from windows. You can see it. It's just, man, the abstracts are killing it over here. But if you look closely, there's a shadow there. Just light from outside is getting in. I love it. I honestly love that you can now block this light, because before you get all these weird angle shadows from the walls, and people hated that, right? Most people didn't care for that. So now it's gone. Very happy for that. I can tell a lot of you haven't raised a building before. So I'm going to just generate a forest with mountains, okay? Actually, let me regenerate this. New map with mountains, and I'll set the build height to mountaintops. So the room placement default height is mountaintop. So if you wanted to build a building on top of a mountain, you can build up high or low already. You just raise or lower. So since we're already at the top, this is like the absolute peak it'll allow us to go to. Since we're already in mountains and I raised the build height. But let's say you wanted like, a Great Hall or something up here, right? And then you could generate down below this into the mountain below. So you could start, maybe have a little tunnel that goes down like an access hatch and just keep going down and down and down and down until it gets to a bigger level that's even below this. Then we have a tunnel that offshoots here to a big offset chamber, right? You also can have regular tunnels in here too. Okay, so you could just break off and go into the regular spaces here using the terrain tools. Anyway, y'all get the idea, right? But this is like 3 levels underground. I'm wondering though, you should be able to. I feel like the cave tools should be in here for carving caves and stuff at this level. Because then I could carve out a cave here and then go into it. Anyway, but y'all get the idea. It's going to be amazing. But this goes all the way up to that. And then we could just put like a hatch or something in here, or a pit going down. And then do a ladder all the way down to that. And as long as it keeps going down to another floor with another hole in it, technically I could just get rid of all these like this, going down all the way until it gets to the bottom. I love it. All the hatches are kind of getting a facelift too, and they're not quite done yet. Anyway, I have to end the stream, y'all. We're like over an hour overdue today on stream. We went extra long. I was planning on a half hour, but between the crashes and some random issues today on the stream, like the stream crashing, not DA, I had to, kind of delay a 10, 20 minutes or so. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out today. The stream was an absolute blasty. I enjoy you all so very, very much. And sorry for the crashes randomly happening earlier where the stream would kind of crash on some platforms, but not all of them. Thank you for everyone that patiently, waited for the stream to reload and came back in. I would never just end the stream abruptly. So if it just ends like that, that's why there was a crash. Whether it's a website, my internet, my computer died, any number of things, I will do what I can to get right back, though. So usually I'm just fixing it on the other end. So if I disconnect in the future or at any future streams, that's just so you know. Anyway, thank you everyone for being here, whether it's your first stream or your 100th, whether you were actively chatting or you were lurking. And big thanks to our mods today. We wouldn't have been able to follow all the madness without your help. So thank you to the mods organizing the questions and gathering them from the community and putting them into that document. And we'll be back Wednesday with another reveal stream. That's going to be in our Discord. We stream in Discord every Wednesday. We call it office hours. It's kind of just like, imagine we had a headquarters. You could come in and get a tour, meet the staff, get support kind of thing. But we don't have a headquarters. We're all remote. So that's the closest we can offer. So, but in the office hour stream in Discord, we'll be doing another reveal, pretty much covering the same stuff. But if you missed half of the stream, you want to tune in and catch everything, or not watch the VOD and be more included in the chat with people around at the same time, or maybe you thought of another question between this stream and next stream, you want to ask that question, whatever, tune in and we'll do our best to provide a fun experience for you and answer all questions. Thank you everyone for being here. Appreciate you so very, very much. We're going to run a quick Dungeon Alchemist themed ad, and then we're going to wrap up the stream, okay? So until the next time I give a damn, we'll see you later, all right? Back out. Hurry and do that quick.
You
commercial.
stand before the long, dark road to the fabled realm of Goyak-Ta, and before
Who do we see?
I don't know. A goblin.
I kill him.
But before she does, I, Gilliam of Firth, demand to know the goblin's name.
Hi, my name is Woblin.
Where do you live there, Woblin?
I don't think that's relevant.
Well, but I, Gilliam of Firth, demand to seek the goblin's abode.
Clever. Find family. Kill entire bloodline. I like it.
Seriously, we're doing this? Okay, well, won't be needing that anymore, will I?
Ever get caught by your players with your pants down? Dungeon Alchemist lets you create wonderful maps for any encounter in seconds.
Oh, Woblin. That's a very impressive, cheese collection you've got there.
Yeah, it is quite impressive, yes. But you know what's more impressive? This map I have
To the fabled realm of Goyak-Ta. Please take it and leave. Close the door behind you.
Mr. Woblin, I cannot help but notice that you have a secret tunnel underneath your cabinet. Care to explain?
Download Dungeon Alchemist, the AI-powered map maker, on Steam today.
Quick reminder, Dungeon Alchemist is on sale through July 10th. That's the same day we're launching. Quite fortuitous. So if you or a friend or a family member is looking to buy a copy of Dungeon Alchemist and you've been waiting for a good deal, 20% off, it's the best deal you could possibly get on it. Not to mention you'll be getting it right as the new update launches, so it's a great time to be mapping. Other than that, we'll be back on Wednesday with the Office Hours reveal stream, or Saturday with another reveal stream. So 3 reveal streams this week. If you only got a bit of it, or you want to catch all 3 just in case you thought you missed something, or you have questions later. Either way, it's a fun place to hang out with lots of community members and learn about the new updates. So we hope to see you here. Thank you everyone for being here. We'll see you next time. I give a damn. Back out. Bye.